All right, we're going to talk about how to create bevels on hard edges using brushes. Now, there's ways to do this where you could retopologize these shapes, build in a bevel using any program of your choice, or building this out and then using Control Shift and doing Trim Curve and creating bevels that way, which just lowers geometry. But we're going to do it the high res way. Using brushes. So I'm going to go ahead and shoot these helmet pieces to the top, holding down Shift and doing this bent arrow up. So I just want to deal with these top two subtools. So I'm going to go ahead and temporarily merge these down. Control E is my hotkey for that. And so now these are all one subtool. So with this one selected, I'm going to go down here to delete other. Hit always OK. And now I'm going to do a. I think these are. You can just group split these. I'm just going to hide that and then do a quick split hidden. So now I've got two subtools here. And so the easiest way to do bevels is if you have long straight lines, and there's two easy ways to do that. One is to take this middle one here and we'll hit X. We're going across the X axis. I'm going to hit solo to go in solo mode. And a really quick easy way to get a bevel on this thing is to hold down Control Shift, go into not slice curve, we want to do clip curve. And what that's going to do is hold down Control Shift and you can hit space bar and move this thing around, and wherever that gradient is, it's going to pull geometry straight back to that line. So you can just create a very quick bevel. And I'm not doing this scientifically accurate. I'm just kind of moving the camera so that it kind of goes straight down this line, and then I'm just clipping this back, like that. And then of course you can go around your object, and if you hold down Shift and do this, it'll clip to different angles. Usually when I'm clipping small bevels, I'm not really all that concerned. If it's not right, I'll just go back here and maybe clip a little bit less. Not all that concerned. The problem where you'll run into is if you get areas like this where you can't, clip that. And then you have a straight line up here, which you can clip. So we'll go to the side here, but it kind of bows. You'll see it bows out slightly. So it might not work all that well. You can actually hold down Control Shift and try to clip it from this direction. And if you tap Alt once, you'll get a Bezier curve. If you tap Alt twice, you'll get a sharp curve. And of course, you can clip shapes out like that. However, you'd want to do a nice smooth curve, and this will work varying degrees of success, but not exactly what we're looking for. So a really quick and easy way to do this one would be to go into your trim. I have it under Alt T, Trim Dynamic. So that would be under B, T, and then D. BTD is Trim Dynamic. Basically what Trim Dynamic does is, and we're going to talk about two brushes, Trim Dynamic and H Polish. Trim Dynamic will take an edge and flatten it out. And if you have really, really shaky hands like I do, I always go into, mine's down here under the lazy radius. So you're going to see if I hit L, it's going to turn lazy radius on. Where that is in your stroke menu under lazy mouse. You're going to see a lazy radius turn on and off when I hit L. So if you hit L and turn that on and you crank this up, you'll get a string behind your brush that'll smooth that stroke out. You can also go in here and do a little bit of like mouse average. You can crank that up and that'll smooth out your strokes a little bit as well. But lazy radius is what I usually end up using. There's also stuff like backtrack. You can do backtrack to a spline, to a line. For example, you can snap it to track, do a line, then you can make a line, and then you can snap your brush to that line. I don't use that too often, but it's there if you want to use that stuff as well. So basically, I'll go through here and I'll do a quick trim, and there's a kind of a caveat to this. As of this recording, you'll sometimes get shapes, and if you want to, you can like smooth out this area just a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and Dynamesh this so here's a good one. My resolution is maxed out, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to click, I'm going to make sure all my subtools that I want to do this to are showing, and I want to do it to all of them. And I'm going to go down here to deformation. I'm going to go to size, and I'm going to go up 100. And then I'm going to go down here to the bottom and do repeat to other. And then I'll do all my other subtools at the same time. And then if I hit F to frame, it'll snap me back to this view. And now that we got this thing framed. Now, if you do that and you need to get back to the regular size, you can do all this Dynamesh and do whatever you need to for the rest of the project. And then at the very end, all you have to do to get it back down to the size you had it is go to size and then do the deformation size down to -100, repeat to other, and you're back where you started. But what that's going to do is allow us to get a little bit more resolution. So I'm going to Alt-tab this one, And then I've got this maxed out at 2048, which has our geometry looking like this. I'm going to make it a little bit less. Dynamesh is turned on, blur is off, groups is off, and just redynamesh. You're going to see I get a lot more resolution out of that. So that'll give me a little bit more to play with. So we'll go back up here, hold down Shift, and kind of smooth this out a little bit. Go Alt-T to go into my trim dynamic, or whatever your hotkey is. And you can just drag that right along here. And if it gets it perfect, that's fine. If it doesn't, you can just undo it and do that. And if your lazy radius is too much, you can go in here and change your lazy radius, or up here in your stroke menus where it'll stay up here in your lazy radius. Lazy step is something else that you'll get into if you're dragging patterns and stuff, but nothing you need to worry about. So you can do that. If you also want to clean this up, you can go into H polish, which is BH, and that'll just grab your H polish. And what that does is kind of the opposite of trim dynamic. What trim dynamic does is take a hard edge and just kills that hard edge. What H polish does is actually it maintains edges and polishes surfaces. Where all that stuff's happening is under your in your brush menu, which I have over here. You've got brush, curve depth, you've got samples, you've got surface, that's surface noise, you've got modifiers, you've got all these options. And where a lot of these edge options are coming from is right up here on this preserve edge, stabilizing orientation, constant samples, fast samples, build up. All these things lead up to basically a H polish brush. So just doing those. And there's other options like trim. Let me see if there it is. Let me see what a brush. One of my trim brushes. You can set up really cool stuff. Maybe I'll do another video on this one. Trim, smooth border. I'm going to double tap this one. Now what this one does is build up. Now you're seeing it's going through the mesh when I do that. If I don't want that to happen, I got to go over here to my brush menus, auto masking, and turn on backface, and then it won't go through. If I add like a square alpha to this one, you can see I can build up very rocky shapes and stuff. You can actually use this as kind of a polish brush to do some really interesting rock formation creation by borrowing. If you go into your H polish brush, you can go in here and peek at where it's doing its sampling and where it's doing its edge, preserve edge and stuff, and then you can apply those settings to another brush and actually get a little bit more of a polish effect on this brush. So you can kind of have like a rocky brush that you can go through and polish as well. Anyways, go back into H polish, and if H polish is like anything else, if you want to add a brush alpha, it'll kind of tighten it up, or your focal shift, which is set at -39 right now. But if you have a straight line but it gets a little wobbly in here, just go in here with your H polish and kind of polish that down. This goes a little bit beyond the focus of this video, but one thing about H polish you need to utilize is if you want to flatten this out, you can H polish, but it's going to H polish it down. You can kind of see I'm pushing into the surface. What I find is useful is holding down Alt and polishing up to an edge, and then letting go of Alt and polishing down. So you can polish up by holding Alt and then polish down, and going back and forth between those, you'll get really nice, smooth, hard edges. Now, granted, this is a little bit more time-consuming-ish than going in there and going, well, if I had low-res geometry, I could just select all these edges and bevel them and all that stuff. This isn't as time-consuming as you would think. I can go in here, and you have quite a bit of control. You can, oh, I want that to be a little bit smoother, so you round that out, and then you H polish it down, and you're good to go. It's really, depends on how you want to work. Same thing with this one. If I don't like this tight curve, I can smooth it down just a little bit. Maybe trim it just a tad. If this thing's way too long, and it is a little bit for me, I'm going to crank this down to like 6 maybe, and then it's a little bit more fluid, and then I can polish this up, polish it back, and just kind of clean up these edges. Again, it's not scientifically accurate, but it's more than enough for doing this kind of stuff. Another thing you can utilize is, say you have a straight edge and you want to snap this to your camera view. You can hit W to go in your transpose, and you can run a transpose line right along this edge. And if you want to, you can snap this edge to your camera view by touching this little white circle, and you can zoom in. And this basically makes this line right here flat. So if you go into Alt-T, which is my trim dynamic, and you start drawing and you hold down Shift, it'll snap it to that flat camera plane. I was a little bit sloppy there, but I'm going to hit W again, snap it again, go hit Q, Alt T, and then you can just very nicely hold down Shift and do this. I'm going to see if there's an area on here. Let me go ahead and up this resolution as well. Redynamesh. Smooth this out. Sometimes when you're trim dynamic brushing, you're going to notice it. I mean, this one's like butter right now, so it's really nice. But sometimes you'll get it where it just seems like it's doing weird things with your surface, like this. It didn't actually do that, but occasionally that'll happen. What you want to do is go over here and turn on fast samples under your brush samples menu, and what that'll do is smooth out any kinks you might be getting. I would say leave this off. If it's doing fine, leave it off. But if you're having problems and it seems like it's having a real hard time with your mesh, just go over here and turn fast samples on, and it should smooth that right out. So for instance, you want to go along here to keep doing this, and it's going to be a little bit wobbly. And like I said, there are other ways to do this in geometry, but it requires rebuilding and stuff. And honestly, if I'm just doing something really quickly, or it's something that's just needs a little bit of work, I'll just go in here really quickly like this and do this, and then go in with H polish, which is Alt H on my keyboard, and just go polish. Yeah, I know it's a little bit wobbly, but you can polish this down. If you have other techniques and brushes and stuff like that that's better than this, I'm all ears. Just reply, and I'd love to hear it. This is just my working method. You might have a better one, and like I said, I'd love to hear it. But I think that's all for the trim, dynamic, H polish, transpose and snap, backtrack you can use. I'm trying to think of anything else. Clipping, obviously for like this type of stuff. Like I said, if you get into an area where, let's see if it'll do it. You can always mask out certain areas and it won't clip, but if you're having a hard time and your clip's wanting to like clip through other sides of mirrored geometry, all you got to do, just remember, is I've got X off actually. I'm going to do hold down Alt, hold down Control Shift, drag this out, hold down Alt, get rid of that. I'm going to do a quick delete hidden, which for you will be under geometry, modify topology, delete hidden. And if something's in your way on the left hand side, because clip tends to go across axes, you can go over here, go ahead and do all the clipping you need to do, like this, and go over here and you can clip this side. And again, if this geometry is getting in your way right here, just go ahead and mask this out and get a better angle, clip this down or whatever. And then once you're done clipping, you can do a quick, in this case it'll be a mirror, and weld. First for me it'll be mirror, and weld right here in my special menu. For you, you'll have to go to deformation, mirror, and then modify topology, mirror and weld. And then you're back to where you started, and you can hit X and it'll go across axis. One more thing about the clip brush: when you're clipping, you're going to want to remember, let's go ahead and grab this thing. What clip does is pull geometry straight down. So if I have a clip curve and I go across here, it's going to pull all that geometry above that line straight down to that point, which is going to leave you with this kind of stuff. To avoid that, one thing you can do is do a clip or a trim curve, and what that's going to do is trim everything above that line and fill this hole. It's the same thing as doing a slice curve, delete hidden, fill hole, but it does it all in one easy step for you. And you'll see this is actually its own polygroup right here. So that's one option you can do. Just remember that trim curve doesn't go across axis, so even though I've got X turned on, you'll have to do a quick mirror, and weld to get both sides going on that one.